I'm going to respond now to Luddite romantics on anti-theism, Angie anti-theist, and being anti-Angie anti-theist. A link to his video can be found in the underbar. Luddite romantics video is response to my video in praise of Angie the anti-theist. A link to my video can also be found in the underbar. Now, I cannot speak for Angie herself. That would be improper. Besides, she has already responded to Luddite Romantic on these matters, and he has shot 2 videos responding to her. But what I can do is speak to the claims Luddite Romantic makes in his video and offer a further defense of the kind of approach I perceive Angie to take in advocating atheism. Luddite Romantic claims that Angie is obsessed with obtaining evidence for religious claims. The problem, he says, with that is that the evidentialist approach is not epistemologically unproblematic. The problem with the evidentialist approach, Luddite Romantic tells us, is that evidentialist claims are potentially infinitely regressive. One needs evidence for their evidence, so on and so on. Luddite Romantic tells us that the only way to avoid the infinite regress of proffering evidential claims is to reach an axiomatic level, in other words, to accept and to hold some assumptions about the world and the nature of reality. In this regard, Luddite Romantic cites the work of Alvin Plantinga, particularly his reformed epistemological approach. Plantinga holds that there are a set of beliefs that we have that are properly basic, and that's his term, or to use Luddite Romantic's term, axiomatic. An example would be a belief in the existence of other minds other than our own. Using this approach, Plantinga argues that a belief in the existence of God is justified because it is a properly basic belief. Now, I can't deal with all aspects about the so-called problem with evidentialism or with Plantinga's arguments for basic beliefs in the space of this film. Allow me, however, to provide a few comments and the upshot of my views on these matters. First, it seems to me that an atheist can properly bracket the infinite regress problem with evidentialism when they are responding to the claims of theists that cite evidence for their claims or could in principle be supported by evidence. Take, for example, the statement, God performs miracles. Such a claim could in principle be supported by evidence, and it is perfectly appropriate for the atheist to ask the theist to produce the evidence. Second, I happen to agree with Plantinga that there are a set of beliefs that are properly basic, but I don't think a belief in God is one of them. Now, this could get rather involved, but let me provide the upshot of my view. Those beliefs that should be esteemed as properly basic are the ones that seem to be necessary to enable us to survive and to comport ourselves about in the world. Admittedly, and I add unashamedly, that's a parsimonious standard. It's also a standard that, with Laplace, finds God as an unnecessary hypothesis. Luddite Romantic's complaint with the so-called new atheists is that they tend to dwell in what he calls the slums of theology. They address the worst arguments that religion has to offer and not the best. As a consequence, he tells us, the new atheists are obsessed with fundamentalism. But fundamentalist arguments do not represent the best arguments that atheists have to offer, he says. Now, if the advocates of atheism are intent on spreading atheism, I don't see why they should be preoccupied with the so-called best arguments that religion has to offer. They should be concerned with the arguments that most theists proffer, the ones that keep most believers under the sway of theism. Besides, there will be a minority of atheists that will take up the so-called best arguments that theism has to offer. According to Luddite romantic, Angie holds that being rational and being religious are antithetical to each other. I suspect that Luddite romantic holds this belief about the new atheists as well. Now it strikes me that this issue rests upon equivocal senses of the word rational. If by irrational we mean that believers can have reasons for their theistic beliefs, then of course that is apparently true. I can't imagine that any theist would deny this apparent empirical truth. If by irrational we mean that believers can be persuaded by arguments for the existence of God that appeal to reason alone, like the ontological argument, then this also is empirically true. In fact, I once met a missionary who told me that he converted to Christianity because he was persuaded by the ontological argument for the existence of God. If by rational we mean that believers can be basically rationally oriented people, then that also is empirically true. But if by irrational we mean that believers can defend their theistic beliefs on persuasive and sound rational grounds, then I think that atheists are correct to object to that claim. I agree with atheists on that point. I don't think believers can defend their theistic beliefs on persuasive and sound rational grounds. That's why, among other things, I'm an atheist. Apparently, many believers agree with that assessment as well. That's why they appeal to the non-rational as the source of theistic belief. I hope this meets most of Luddite romantics' concerns. Thank you.